I'm going to share a few of my little tips and tricks or cheaper ways to get around things. If you're like me and you sort of live in a place where you don't have ready access to all the great scrapbooking products and stuff that is on the market, and you're completely impatient, and if you want to do something, you want to do it right now, then you probably, like me, have devised little ways of getting around your problems. So today I'm going to show you a few of my ways that I get around a problem that I was having. I wanted acrylic blocks. Sometimes you have a stamp, you buy a stamp, and it turns out to be a little bit too big for the existing acrylic blocks that you have. For instance, I only had these little ones from Quick Stamps, and this stamp was huge. So I needed to find a way to either buy some acrylic blocks that didn't cost so much or find some other kind of method to use the stamp. The first thing I tried was to use one of my old Cuttlebug plates. One of them had broken, and it was clear and it was acrylic, and it happened to be of the C plate thickness. So here we go. I've got the acrylic plate, and it seems like it's going to work. I get out one of the long stamps that I have, and I usually place it on a little piece of acetate. I just put it down there, align it. Then I take the Cuttlebug plate, broken Cuttlebug plate, and pick up the stamp. And it seems to work pretty well. Now I'm going to demonstrate how this works. Get out a strip of paper. I've inked up my stamp, and I'm going to test it. I'm not too concerned about how much ink there is on the die because this is just a demo. Place it down. Just give it a little bit of a rock. Make sure that the ink gets on there. Take it off. Perfect. You can see that the width of the plate is not that fantastic. You still get your fingers in the way, and you'll touch the bottom of the surface that you're working on. But it seems to work okay. If you just need something to stamp really quickly, you're not concerned about that. You could also do the same from those frames. You can get those cheap frames at like those cheap discount shops, and you can take out the little acrylic insert and use that as a stamping block as well. Now, if you want something that's going to rock and you need a bigger version of that, you could also use the top of your ink pad, like Colorbox ink pads. This is a Fab Scraps one. It's a company from South Africa. Makes rounded tops of their little stamp pads. So what you do is you just take off one of your stamps. You could just lay it on the top of that. It's got a bit of a curved edge, and that would give you the slight rocking motion that you get with the rocker blocks. I just turn it over, ink up the stamp, and we'll be good to go in a second. Now you just lay it on your paper and just rock the way you would use a rocker block. I usually just put my fingers in there just to make sure that it touches in the middle. You could also use those little acrylic containers that sewing pins come in. You just take out the sewing pins and put them aside somewhere. And you just do the same thing. I kind of prefer them when they're a bit deeper because it gives you something to hold on to. Like I said, with the other Cuttlebug plate, it was a little too thin and your fingers kind of get in the way. But with this being a bit deeper, it's quite easy to manipulate. It's quite easy to stamp with. So once again, you ink up the stamp. Get your piece of paper out and hold it down and stamp with it. Again, I stick my fingers in the center just to give it a little bit more direction and to be able to control the stamp. And there we go. The other thing you can use is these little acrylic covers that come in that come with little pen sets. So we have stores where we can buy these cheap little pen sets, and the top of that works out perfectly as a stamping block. Here I've just stuck my stamp down on a piece of acetate so it's easier to pick up. And I stick the block on the stamp and pick that up. Now I'm going to ink up my stamp on that. These are great because they're rectangular and they kind of deep as well, so you can hold on to it really well. And I usually like to control it by sticking my fingers right down in there. I've said that a zillion times as well. You can give it a bit of a rock as well. I just like to do that just because I seem to always stamp just the ends, or put pressure on the ends, and in the middle gets a little bit lighter than the outside. So this kind of works great. So you can see when you stick your finger in, you can stick it down exactly where you want it to go. And to date, this is my favorite kind of non-acrylic block. I use this quite a lot. The last tip I have for you today is about the acetate placement method. Now, when I buy stamps, I usually take them out of their little cases or little packets, and then I put them in these clear CD cases because it makes it easier for me to handle. And usually you get left with the acetate strip that's got nothing to do. But I don't throw those away. I either keep them and use them as inserts, or I stamp on them. Now I use regular stamp pad ink, the kind that you would use in the office, when you stamp the time and date, and I just pour it on. The reason why I'm using regular stuff is because it's much cheaper than Tim Holtz or pigment dyes. And all I really want to do is just check where I'm going to stamp on. So I take my stamp, I just ink it up. It's water-based and really light. And I then will stamp on the piece of acetate. And it will leave a very sort of faint impression. I don't need the acetate to be super dark or the impression to be too clear, because all I'm really doing is just checking. So I get out a card that I have done. This is one that I've embossed and then just run over with ink. And I want to continue the swirl pattern. And I look to see where would be the best place to put in the stamped swirl for the contrast of the embossed and the stamp. So I check out there, not liking it too much. Maybe not so much there, and then I finally think, maybe I'll continue it onto the little embossed circle, and that seems to be a good place to put it. So you can see, because of the acetate, I can figure out where I want the stamp to go. Now I don't want it to stamp on the circle, so I'm just going to rub that off quickly. And then I'm going to use the acetate as a kind of mask so I don't stamp on the circle. And I will ink up my stamp on my sewing pin acrylic block. Now I'm going to stamp that right on there so I can match up where I want the end of the stamp swirl to match the embossed swirl, so that it just continues the pattern. Because there's the acetate there, it's not actually going to stamp on the little embossed circle there. Again, your fingers help give you direction. You can put it down exactly where you want it to go. And there we have it. Necessity is the mother of all invention. And I've discovered by living in South Africa that that is incredibly true. Please let me know if you find any other cool stuff that you can use as a fake acrylic block. And if you want to add to these tips or contribute some more, leave a comment or add a video response. It's great to share information. That's all for me. See ya.